There was a morning when he stood in his quiet kitchen, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold, and for a moment he couldn't remember why he had come there in the first place. Not because his memory was failing, but because nothing in his day was calling him anymore. No one was waiting. Nothing needed him. And at 82, that silence felt heavier than age itself. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you're here today. His name was Kareem, and for most of his life he had been the kind of man people relied on. He had run a small roadside eatery for over 40 years. Nothing fancy, just a few wooden tables, a rusted stove, and the smell of fresh bread that carried down the street every morning. People knew him. They greeted him. They trusted his food and somehow his presence, too. But that was a long time ago. After his wife passed away and his children moved to different cities with lives of their own, the restaurant slowly became too much for him to manage. One day, without any ceremony, he closed it, locked the door, handed the keys to the landlord, and just like that, the rhythm of his life stopped. At first, he told himself it was rest. He had earned it, after all. He would wake up late, sit by the window, watch people pass by. Days blended into each other. Tea in the morning, a simple meal in the afternoon, a quiet evening, sleep. But something inside him was fading. Not loudly, not dramatically, just slowly, like a candle that hadn't quite gone out, but no longer gave any warmth. Sometimes he would find himself standing in his small kitchen, staring at the empty counter, remembering the sound of sizzling oil, the clatter of dishes, the low hum of conversations from strangers who had once filled his space. He didn't miss the work. He missed being part of something. One afternoon, his neighbor's grandson knocked on his door. A boy, maybe 10 years old, holding a crumpled note in his hand. His grandmother wasn't feeling well, and he asked Kareem if he could help make something simple to eat. Kareem hesitated. It had been years since he had cooked for anyone else. But something in the boy's voice, or maybe something in his own chest, made him say yes. He stepped into the neighbor's kitchen, rolled up his sleeves, and for the first time in a long while, his hands remembered what his mind had forgotten. The rhythm returned, slow at first, then steady. He chopped, stirred, tasted, adjusting flavors not by measurement but by instinct. When the food was ready, the boy took a bite and smiled in that unfiltered, honest way children do. "This tastes like something special," he said. And Kareem just stood there for a moment, holding on to those words longer than he expected to. That evening, back in his quiet home, something felt different. The silence was still there, but it no longer felt empty. The next day he cooked again, just a small dish, and he sent it over. Then the day after that, another neighbor asked if he could make something for them, too. Word began to travel, not quickly, not loudly, but gently, like the way good things often do. At first, Kareem resisted the idea of forming in his mind. It seemed unreasonable. At 82, people talk about slowing down, not starting over. But this wasn't about ambition. It wasn't about money. It was about something much simpler and much deeper. He wanted to feel alive again. So one morning he walked down the street to a small, empty shop that had been closed for years. The paint was peeling. The windows were dusty. Most people passed by without even noticing it, but Kareem stopped. He stood there for a long time, his hand resting lightly against the door, as if he were asking it a question. And then He made a decision that surprised even him. It wasn't easy. His children were concerned when they heard. "Abba, you don't need to do this," they said. "Just rest. We'll take care of everything." But Kareem smiled gently. "I know," he told them. "This isn't because I have to. It's because I want to." The first few weeks were slow, cleaning, fixing, arranging things in a way that made sense to him. He didn't try to make it modern, he didn't try to impress anyone, he simply recreated what he knew, what felt like home. A few mismatched tables, a small menu, a place where people could sit without feeling rushed. On the day he opened, there were only 3 customers. He recognized one of them, the boy who had first knocked on his door. The other 2 were curious passers-by. Kareem didn't rush. He cooked the way he always had, carefully, attentively, as if each meal mattered, because to him it did. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, more people began to come. Not because it was trendy, not because it was advertised, but because something about that place felt different. It wasn't just the food. It was the way Kareem remembered your name after just one visit, the way he asked how your day had been, and actually waited for the answer, the way he moved around the kitchen, not like a man chasing time, but like someone who had made peace with it. There was a warmth there that couldn't be explained, only felt. And then one evening something unexpected happened. Kareem's son walked into the restaurant. They hadn't seen each other in months. Life had created distance, not out of conflict, but out of quiet neglect. The kind that builds slowly, without anyone noticing. The son stood near the entrance, looking around, taking it all in. Kareem looked up from the stove, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then the son smiled, not a polite smile, but something softer, something real. "I didn't understand," he said quietly as he took a seat. "But now I think I do." Kareem nodded, not needing to explain anything. That night they ate together, not as a father who needed to be taken care of, and not as a son who felt obligated, but simply as 2 people sharing a moment that had been missing for too long. It wasn't a grand reunion. There were no dramatic words, but something healed. As the months passed, the restaurant became more than just a place to eat. It became a space where people felt seen, where conversations lingered a little longer, where time slowed down, just enough for people to remember what it felt like to connect. And Kareem? He wasn't just passing time anymore. He was living it. There were still quiet moments, of course. Days when his body felt the weight of his years. Evenings when the chairs were empty and the silence returned. But it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. Because he knew that tomorrow there would be something waiting for him. Someone, even. And sometimes that's all a person really needs. To feel needed, to feel alive, to know that their story isn't finished yet. So if you're listening to this and there's something in your life that feels paused, something you've quietly set aside because it felt too late or too small or not worth beginning again, maybe it's not about starting over. Maybe it's just about starting. Kareem didn't open a restaurant to prove anything to the world. He opened it to reconnect with himself. And in doing that, he found his way back to others too. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story touched you in some small way, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories like this, you're always welcome to stay a little longer. Maybe even subscribe so we can share more moments like this together.